Hello again everyone, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Doug. My screen name on the internet is Laid Off Sick. I'm here today for video update number 3 on the layout. It's been 3 months since the last update, which was right before Christmas 2012. It's currently March 2013, and this also marks the 1-year anniversary since my dad and I began construction. We haven't made a lot of progress in the past 3 months, but we've got a lot of finishing touches towards the front of the layout done, and working on some track, rearranging some tracks for the engine service area. And of course you see the new bridge here we got to put in. I'll show you that in detail a little later. But let's take a look around the layout and see the updates we've made in the last 3 months. And thanks for tuning in. You can see the back of the layout has changed quite drastically. Not only do we have the fascia board up and painted, but a big thanks and shout out to my mother-in-law who made up our little black skirt. There's Velcro on the front side sewn on there. It's pleated. We glued Velcro, just some strips along the back of the fascia board with some contact cement, and the skirt's just Velcroed up there. We can take it off, wash it, take it off when we're doing scenery so it doesn't get dirty. But it hides all the crap under the layout, all the raw wood, the legs and framework of the layout, so it gives it that finished appearance, and it really draws your attention to the trains themselves. You really focus on the track and what will be the scenery eventually. But thanks, Judy. We appreciate it. Think it really looks good. Some of you may also notice that the track has now been painted. I've got the track painted on the bottom loop. It's painted all the way around, or at least in the areas that are going to be visible. A lot of it didn't have to paint because you're not going to see it anyways, but the bottom track has been painted. You can see we're putting up the styrofoam for the backing. We got some various rock molds from Woodland Scenics and Bragnet Enterprises. Got my mom making rock molds, so we're going to get going on the scenery back here pretty soon. We're going to do some experimenting on the back here with some rock work and stuff and coloring and this and that. Then we'll get it ballast. Then we'll move to the front side. We're going to experiment back here though, so if we mess it up, it's in the back and not in the front. We can always tear it out and start over, but we're going to play around back here so that way we can perfect our techniques and get it down so when you walk in the door you see the best of our techniques we've come up with. The styrofoam will get hot glued in there, or liquid nails or whatever, and then the rocks will get attached to that. Then they'll be colored and scenic, and then we'll do the ballast. We're starting to gather materials to do the scenery. You've heard the expression dumb as a box of rocks. Well, what happens if you have boxes of rocks? How dumb is that? I don't know. But here I told you I got my mom making rocks, so she's got boxes of rocks made. We got a couple molds from Bragnet Enterprises. We haven't even used these yet. We still got one more on the way. We're waiting for some silicone mold release, and then we'll start experimenting with these. We're going to try some plaster. We might end up doing their foam method. We'll see. A lot of detail in this mold, really deep detail. We're going to use these either in the front or the back for the rock cliff between the upper level and the bottom level. Obviously a lot of these smaller Woodland Scenics rocks are going to be busted up and used in chunk to make the canyon walls there in the front where the bridges are going to be, so you'll see all that when you first walk in the house. Got a couple buckets of artist gesso to get started. Got a bottle of matte medium from Michael's. That's kind of expensive over there. We'll probably end up ordering some more from Scenic Express, but we got some to get started anyway. Speaking of ballast, I'm sure most of you have seen the advertisements, maybe the reviews. We got the Ballast King ballast car. There's, I think, 300 plus feet of main line, So obviously doing that all by hand would take, I don't know, too long to calculate. So when we get to that point, we're going to use the Ballast King. Obviously you cannot use it for switches. We will ballast every switch that is visible. I've done it before. You take your time. You don't use a ton of glue. You don't soak the switch, but the switch can be ballasted. It will look nice and neat. Also, one other note with this Ballast King car, for those of you that are interested, when we are done using it, we're probably going to rent it out for the week or month or whatever, if we don't just sell it outright at a discounted price. But stay tuned for that. We'll let you know how it works. We got a lot of mainline to do. I think it's a valuable tool. It's going to save us a lot of time. And when we're done with it, we'll pass it on to the next individual. We also put this panel in with volt and amp meters. As you've seen in previous videos, we're running the Lionel ZWC with 480 watt bricks. And we wanted to be able to monitor the power input and power output, what we have to use and what we are consuming. So we just put in these cheap analog volt and amp meters here in this panel next to the control panel. They're out here built onto the fascia board so we can see what's going on at all times. We'll be running, you know, several engines at the same time on one power district, lighted passenger car, smoke units. So we just want to be able to monitor what's going on, and we can see it right here. Each one's on its own handle, and of course, I don't have them labeled up here, but we know that it's A, B, C, and D. Yes, it's backwards because that's how the ZW is labeled on the handles. Whatever reason, Lionel's always done it backwards. Instead of A through D, we're going A through D this way. So handle A, throttle 1 as we call it, is TR1. We dial that up and you see the voltage go up, 18 volts. There we go. We're showing a little bit of amps on here because there's an engine sitting on the track. The caboose light and the engine lights are on, so we just picked up a little bit of amperage there. Same thing with the other 3 throttles. Dial in track 2, turn up the voltage. No amperage, we don't have anything on that power district. That's main 1. Blocks A and B are power district 1 and 2, 1 and 2. The train's setting in power district 1 right now, so there's nothing here. We got 18 volts, no amps. Turn up track 3. Got 18 volts there. You see we're pulling a couple amps. That's because right now that's wired into a couple of the, well, it's wired into the inbound and the outbound track going to the turntable. And there's 2 engines sitting on there. Plus that also controls power district 1 for main 2, which there's an engine sitting up there too. So you can see, well, now we're down to about an amp. Everything's settled down. Nothing's running. The lights are just on. They're old TMCC stuff, so the lights just come on at idle and they sit there. There's our volts amps. We'll go to throttle 4, same thing. Dial up the voltage. 18 volts coming from the brick. Nothing setting on that track, 0 amps. And then if we want to shut them down, you can just hit aux 1 and 0 and it kills the power. Drops right down. You don't have to do that. All the power's off. No amps. All 4 handles of the ZW are still on full. It's all controlled with the cab 2. And now we also have the cab 1 wired into the system, so we can use the cab 2 to run the trains, and we're going to use the cab 1 to control the engine facility area, which I'm going to show you here in a little bit. We got the diesel tracks going in back there for the diesel shed. That's a custom diesel shed. It's a Pecos River brass double T walls. It's actually two different kits I bought in Kit Bash. You got 2 stalls and then a single stall. The single stall is not open in the back end. The double stalls are open and they go out the back door, so you can park an engine outside or out back of the shop. We'll have some tanks in here, diesel fuel, lube, have some fueling racks and sanding tracks probably on this outside track here. I got all the lead wired in except the 2 tracks, and that last switch there isn't wired. It needs one of those remote mounts, and I just haven't had the time or the patience to mess with that yet because I have a lot of close clearances under there, a main brace for the bench work and legs and everything else. So everything else is wired up and working except that switch and these 2 tracks. The building isn't even close to being finished yet, but we needed the size so we could get the tracks in here. So basically just the outer walls, and the piece of masonite for the roof has been cut so I could place the building, get the tracks in, and then at a later time I'll start working on the building. You can see there's power parked inside track 1. Got an engine setting out track 2. Track 3 goes inside the building and stops, and then track 4 is where we're going to have diesel fuel rack, probably some sanding racks out here. So you got 4 big tracks. The inside will hold two 18-inch units, so you can hold 2 -8s, 2 -9s. You can probably fit an ABB unit inside the building. Depending on whether you're using KDs or claws, you can at least hold 2 units inside the building, and 1 6-axle unit on the short track there. Yeah, I know there's a Santa Fe engine there sitting next to the UP sign. Oh well, we might just add another Santa Fe sign up there on that backdrop anyways. We've been experimenting a lot with this area of the engine facility as far as building placement. We have quite an assortment of structures and buildings going already. A couple water columns, the ash pit, cinder hoist, all from Crescent Locomotive Works. I got the brass sand tower water tank from Weaver, the Lionel coaling station. And we were trying to get all that stuff over here on the inbound and outbound tracks, but it's just not going to happen. There's not enough straight track to get that stuff in there the way it needs to be, because the articulated engines hit everything. The clearance is too tight. So I think we're going to add some additional engine service areas to the roundhouse coming off this back lead here that goes into the inbound and outbound tracks. And we'll have a couple more switches in here with 2 more tracks that access the sand house, the ash pit, probably the coaling tower. We're going to go back here so the coal cars can go back and dump. I had to order a couple more switches from Mercer Junction. We'll get that going here in a couple weeks, but there was just too much going on and not enough area up here. So we'll get all these buildings in here eventually. Also got some station platforms from Crescent Locomotive Works. We have Atlas, well, Walter's passenger platform that's going to go probably back here around this corner up in the hillside. It'll go probably right in here. We'll have platforms on both sides of the tracks here at the main line. It'll be built into the hillside here. The bottom track is going to come out of a tunnel here and through a cut there in that corner. We've been cutting some styrofoam and stuff for placement. The center section here, we got a piece of plywood laying in there for now. We got to get it raised up with some 2x4s and stuff, but it is going to be where the industries are. We're looking for some sort of brewery for all the beer cars. We're going to have an ice deck in here, probably have Dave from Crescent Locomotive Works build the ice deck to put in this area, and probably a couple other ones, but it's going to be raised up so it's the same level as the middle here. There's the switch that will lead in there. So obviously you can see the plywood's down there. We got to raise it up 10 or 11 inches to that same height so you can shove your cars in the industries there, come around the corner, and everything will be in there. And then the hills will come down from the upper tracks. It's only like 2 inches there, gradually goes up. So it's not going to be, once that plywood goes up, you're going to see a drastic change in the center section because it's not going to look as steep as it does right now. All the hillsides will come down from the upper tracks there down to the plywood once that's all filled in. But we've been working, we're at the point now in the layout where there's a lot of things going on in different areas. We have a lot to choose from. I spend hours over here wiring and then I get tired of it, so I'll move on and put some more tracks in, whatnot. So we're at the stage where, what are we going to do today? You want to work on scenery? You want to do some wiring? You want to do track? What are we going to do? I talked about completion phases and getting some of the things to the point where they're finished to give it that finished look that really changed drastically. This is one of them. You can see the display case is now framed in molding. It's painted to match the trim to the rest of the house. So, you know, you got your wall and your baseboard, so it looks like the display case is actually built into the wall. We just got that finished up. Both cases are framed all the way around. Gives it a nice finished built-in look. Also, if you remember from the previous videos, this display case on this side actually hung over that little half wall there about 2 feet. So we extended that wall out. We built a little false wall there, drywalled it, textured it, painted it, put the molding up so it looks like the wall goes all the way across now. But, we've remodeled this corner because we're going to put canyon in here from the top level all the way to the floor where the bridges are going to go across. So we built a little false floor there, both sides. I'll have canyon on this side. It starts from the lower track all the way to the floor, and then the bridge is going to span this gap. And this is the bridge that's going to span the gap. This just showed up the other day from UPS. It's a custom underarch bridge made by Stainless Unlimited. It's 100% stainless steel, all welded, powder coated, and that's what we're going to use to span this gap. It is going to be a lift out bridge. It will not be hinged. It will not stay there. It only weighs, I don't know, he said it was going to weigh 20-25 pounds, but it's not that heavy. So the scenery is going to be built through here with the support to hold the bridge, and then the bridge just lifts out. It's not that heavy. You can hold it with one hand. Built really well. He said you could lay on top of it, and I believe it. It's pretty heavy duty. But that bridge is going to go across there, and the camera's standing in the entrance to the house, so when you walk in, this is the first area you're going to see. And probably in a couple weeks I'll have my mother-in-law get that skirt finished up, so you'll have black all the way across the front there. It's really going to make that silver stand out. Give you a little bit of close-up view of this bridge. It's pretty impressive. It spans 50 inches. The deepest point for the underarch is 12 inches. It's 12 inches from the top to the bottom. All stainless steel, welded, powder coated. They did a really good job on this. For the second level, which is actually the reverse loop between main 1 and main 2, we're using the Atlas single track Pratt bridge. It doesn't span the gap, so we just ordered those new girder bridges from Ross Custom Switches. We got 2 9-inch girder bridges coming. We're going to put a 9-inch on each side. That will complete the rest of the gap from side to side. And this bridge is going to set in here. So when you walk in the front door to their house, this is the first thing you're going to see. And these will also be built as a lift out. Somehow we'll bolt the girder bridge to each end of the truss bridge, and they will just set in place. We'll take them out. We're going to build some storage under the front edge of the layout there, so there'll be a shelf, and you just slide the bridges in place when you're not using them. And then we'll just set them in place to run trains. Right now, obviously, we can't run trains on the lower loop, because we've torn out the temporary bridge that we had placed in there in order to start working on the underarch bridge. This is going to get modified a little bit. We're going to move this bridge over, cut this off here so we got equal space to do scenery and abutments under each end of the bridge there and there. give a little more centered spacing. But I think it'll look pretty good when that's all said and done. Not really much has changed. Control stand, other than the fact that we have the cab 1 TMCC wired into the system now. We're going to use that to control the engine facility, move around the power. It will also be in charge of turning the turntable. So we added that in. We still got the cab 2 that'll control the mainline movement. We do have DCS. We also installed the second TIU up there. It's not wired in yet, but both of the handles of the Z4000 are going to the second TIU at the top there, which will control the bottom loop and also all of the engine tracks, engine service area. So we'll have this handle here for all the engine tracks. This throttle here will run the lower loop, giving us conventional and command control on all levels of the layout. It's really darkened up down here underneath the layout since we put up the black skirt, and we don't even have the black skirt in the front yet, so it's really going to get dark. So we decided to string some Christmas lights under here, and it really lights up underneath of the layout. Now, they're not going to be on all the time, only when we're under here working. So it really makes a huge difference when I'm under here trying to adjust torque switch machines or connect suitcase connectors. Really makes a difference whether I can see, once, especially now that we have the skirts up. Cuts off all that light from the back windows and air too. It gets pretty freaking hot under there when you're working. Got the Christmas lights over here on this side too. They wrap around both sides. Put in a little shelf system here for all our tools and supplies. We're tired of chasing all over for them, forgetting where you leave the pack of nails, where's the screwdriver and the hammer. So put this little shelf under here so we can put all our supplies over there. Easy to get to, remember where the stuff is at. Of course, that'll all be covered once the little black skirt is finished up for the front, and it will Velcro right underneath that front edge of the fascia board there. The Christmas lights come over here to an outlet strip with an on-off switch. So when we're not using them, we just turn those off too. You can see what a difference it made just in the camera when I turn off those lights. Everybody's favorite, suitcase connectors. I'm not sure how bright this is going to be down here, but I wanted to show you this tortoise remote switch mount. This is an area that we're limited for space because this is the bottom reverse loop track. So we couldn't put the tortoise switch machine over there because it was right in the center of the track. So you got to use their remote mount, or that's one of the ways to do it. So this is what it is. You got the base plate there. There's a steel cable and a vinyl tube that comes over here to the actual tortoise switch machine, which is mounted horizontally instead of vertically. It works the same. The cable slides inside that tube, throws the switch. Let me tell you, it is not easy to mount that thing. It takes patience. If you're at the end of the day and you're tired, don't try doing one of these. Do one of these at the beginning of the day when you're fresh and not frustrated, because it's a pain in the ass. Works great when it's all hooked up, saves a lot of space, but it's not easy to do, especially when you're confined by all this bench work around here.